Hi, welcome to Spinster actually. I'm absolutely sweltering in this, but I wanted to, I guess, like start with this garment because this is what inspired me. Well, I suppose, and also the can-do cardigan, which I recorded a video of me frogging. But yeah, I wanted to talk today about like my knitting failures, because I was thinking about this dress and it kind of fails for me for two reasons. One is about chatness, which is not something I'm going to go into, but the other is just that like it's got linen in it and it's also got wool, and it's just not really wearable for me. Like, I think the only way I could wear this is if I'm wearing something completely under it so that none of it is really touching my skin. The linen is obviously fine on my skin, but the wool is not, and like right now it is really uncomfortable for me to wear. And obviously part of that is because I'm hot, so it's even worse, but still. I currently have this contraption on my arm, which is just a tense machine, because like I'm in a lot of pain, and I guess I also wanted to make this video because I can't really knit. Like, I'm trying to make myself not knit because I think I need to take a break from it because, like, yeah, my hand is hurting a lot, but I love knitting and I really want to knit, so I thought this way I could hopefully have a bit of like knitting fix, even if I'm not actually knitting, but at least I'm talking about knitting. Okay, that's enough. I've got to take this dress off. I did also include some footage of me wearing it more, so you can hopefully get more of an idea. I'm very happy still with the colour of it. So like, I think the striping that I worked out, I think just looks really fantastic. I love the combination. My main kind of issue is that it's a group of fibres that are really impractical in terms of my capacity to wear them. And I guess also in my wardrobe I have one dress that is like fairly easy to wear under it and it's black and stuff, but that only works for like winter time, so I can't wear this in the summertime really, because I could wear this dress under it, the one that I'm wearing in the video, but I just think like it's just too much on my body and yeah, it makes me too uncomfortable. Sorry, we've got a tense pad mishap. Yeah, it's got like a mixture of mohair and then some like Jamieson and Smith's wool, and then also I think some wool from like Fabel knitwear. I think I will leave the like link to the Ravelry page for this. It was just clearly a mistake. And I'm not really sure what to do with it. Like, I definitely just feel like it doesn't get enough wear, but I really obviously don't want to like undo it, and it did take a long time, and I mean it's knit at quite a wide gauge, but yeah, I mean I think another one of my mistakes is that I like overstretched the front panels, which distorted their like stitch definition, because I was worried that it wouldn't fit, and yeah, I just think that like impacts how it looks really, but like it's okay, like I don't think it's terrible or anything. But yeah, so I don't know, any suggestions about what to do with this, or like how to wear it, or like how to mitigate the itchiness, I guess. But the thing is, I've made choices. And they're choices that are like throughout the garment. The other thing about it is because it's linen, it also like on wearing it like definitely lengthens, which is fine because I don't tend to wear it for long periods of time, but when I do feel like after a while I notice that the hem is definitely getting longer and longer, and it's already quite a long hem. So yeah, definitely some mistakes made with this project. Okay, I wanted to talk about like one knitting you know, failure that I turned into a knitting win. So I'm gonna do, yeah, a change for that, even if you can't really see very much of it, but whatever. Yeah, you can really barely see any of this, sorry, but I have included like footage of me actually wearing these. So yeah, so I wanted to talk about this. Which is a, yeah, you really can't see it, but like I said, there'll be footage. A James N. Watts pattern called Look at My Holes, knit at a different larger gauge, and also knit into a dress. And I made this out of what I unravelled from the Harry Styles cardigan that I made, where I held this drops Paris, which is like 100% cotton, double. Absolutely crazy. I held it double, and yeah, I made the cardigan, and it was just so heavy and big, and every time I washed it, obviously it took fucking forever to dry because it was so thick and just cotton. Yeah, I was like not really wearing it, and I knew that it had to become something else, so I unraveled it, and I do still have quite a lot of the yarn I use. More so the, actually, do I have that much red? I think I do, yeah. I've still got red, orange, some yellow, I think, too, and then maybe some of the green, but I can't quite remember. I did also make other people look at my holes, James and Watts tops too. One of them has then been returned to me and I unraveled it too, so I still have that part of it left over. But yeah, I like, it's a very kind of like hippy dippy, you know, ends evident kind of garment, but like I'm pretty happy with it, and I think it's like a fun summer thing to wear over stuff. So yeah, I like it a lot. I'm just happy that I like turned this into a less of a failure. I'll talk about one that's kind of like sort of a failure and also not a failure, but like in the kind of mid-range, I guess, which is this, which is my capulet blouse by Fabel Knitwear. I made this in like 2021 or something. It was like, I think the same year, maybe the same time that I was knitting the Harry Styles cardigan too. Maybe like kind of the same, yeah, same era. And I think like, you know, when I wear it, I get a lot of compliments. People really, and I really like how it looks on me. There's like a couple things I did wrong with the pattern. Like one is just that like I didn't do the right number of cable, of the cable element here, so it's a bit short in the torso. I also didn't like do the first beginning twisted stitch that you're supposed to do at the beginning of the cabling, between the ribbing and the cabling, or something like that. Or maybe I did. I'm pretty sure when I went over I was like, no I didn't, but anyway, yeah. But for me, the main thing, one of the things that's really just stopped me wearing it is that like it constantly falls off my shoulders, which I really don't like. It's just annoying. Yeah, the weight of the sleeve, like the shape of the neckline, and obviously the shape of the neckline is something that I really like too, so you know, it's frustrating. And I also, since having made this, I do feel like I've learned more about the way that, or like I feel like it's sort of clear to me in how Fabel Knitwear like designs that she's not really ever designing for people who are fat, even if she does try to like offer larger sizes now, which is maybe not completely fair, but I just feel like there's lots of ways her designs are just like mostly only working for like thinner people with no chest, or much less than me. And yeah, that's kind of frustrating because I do think she makes nice knitwear, but I also do kind of feel like she designs the same things over and over again. So I did seriously consider like frogging this, but I did also decide to give it like a few more chances. I recently did put elastic in the shoulder like seam or whatever, that's not a seam, the shoulder area, whatever, the shoulder ribbing on both sides. I put 2 rows. I guess I could put another. Oh, this is already broken. Okay, well that's great. Yeah, clearly I should put more. But when I went out with it, when it wasn't broken, it didn't like, it made it slightly better, I would say, but it didn't completely help, and that still just really frustrates me. What I think is most frustrating is that I have to like work really hard to make this pattern work for me, and I really don't like that. Like, I bought this pattern, it should just like fit my size, and it should have like given me what I needed to make it like actually fit as a garment on my body where I move around in the world. Obviously I don't just stand still all the time. I mean, since I wore it recently and I got all of these compliments on it and I did also remind myself of like how much I do really like it, I don't want to frog it. I don't. So yeah, I don't know, we'll see. I have actually also been really enticed by a pattern by Sydney Squid School of Vintage Knitting, that group of patterns, called like the Sugar Plum Blouse or something, which I was kind of thinking would actually look really nice in this yarn, but I don't think I really want to like swap out one for another. Like, I would just like to make that pattern. Yeah, I don't know, it's just sad. It's sad, and I just feel like it should get way more wear than it does. So yeah, this is in the kind of like needs to be fixed pile. I think with my Cloudbow dress, oh, I didn't mention that this pattern was the Cloudbow. I put so much time into it and it's such a big garment, like I think I'm going to just kind of accept that it only works for very short amounts of time during the winter time when I can like wear other things underneath it. But I'm not happy to have like loads of knitwear that is like kind of a failure and not being worn, which is why like I did unravel my Harry Styles cardigan, and like why, yeah, I feel like it's important to have space to like learn and grow as a knitter, and sometimes you do just make a garment that doesn't work and won't work if you like undo it. But I also think I don't want to be giving loads of space to that, because knitwear, clothing, textiles, they're supposed to be useful and they're supposed to be in use. And if they aren't like a tool, I think that's a problem, and I don't like that, because I feel like it also kind of ties into this idea of sort of like, I don't know, maybe that's not fair, but like kind of like an ideology of like consumption, and just like it doesn't matter how much you accrue in terms of fabric and clothing, when I think it does, including the clothes that you've made yourself. And I think we should all be like intentional about that and think about it, but also giving ourselves like grace for like learning about new crafts that we've started. Like, I mean, actually I would say the cowboy dress was knit like maybe like 2023, 2022, so I think 2023, so that wasn't that long ago. But it was, I do feel like I've grown a lot as a knitter, or at least like learned quite a lot as a knitter the whole way through. I don't know. Okay, before I talk about the one that like kind of exposes like everything wrong with how I knit, is that completely fair to say? Maybe. I just want to briefly talk about this beret, because I do think it is kind of a failure. I'm not going to undo it. I'm going to try and like maybe auction it off for a GoFundMe that my friend is running, for someone who's stuck in Gaza right now and her family. But we're both chronically ill, so it might take a little while. So this isn't going to go to waste, like it's not just going to be unused. But basically I just think this is too small. I'm not going to put it on my head because I'm just so hot. But yeah, I think it's just too small, and I just need to have a go and knit a beret at a larger size before I decide that berets just don't work for me. But there are some really nice beret patterns. I really did like this pattern. I love the stalk. I guess it's a little but yeah, like definitely not a complete failure, but in terms of fitting me, doesn't work, but not gonna be frogged. Okay, so on to the last thing. So this has its own kind of fitting looking issues, I would say, and then it has this like final concluding issue that I've suddenly learned about myself from knitting the can-do cardigan and then unraveling it and realizing my stitches were twisted. To talk about this specifically, this is the Tiro slip-on. It's from a pattern that was shared for free and I think graded a bit by Claude from Retro Claude, who also made a video making it, which, yeah, for a while I was just really obsessed with, and so I was really excited to knit my own. It's made in Drops Snow, I think is what it's called, which is like is it like unspun completely, but it's very like, yeah, it's one ply, it's very like loosely spun, and then it's like bulky, and obviously like it's not it's not really wearing especially well, especially considering how little I wear this. But basically, yeah, I think it's like a 30s pattern maybe. Yeah, it's knit, so you like knit the front piece, and then you go over the shoulders to the other side, you knit the back, and then I think then you like sew up the sides, and then you knit the sleeves into the armhole. I think that's how I did it, but I don't really remember. And it has this like drop stitch detail. So yeah, this is very hot, obviously. It's pretty thick wool. I think there are just some like fitting issues with it that I don't like how they turned out. I kind of feel like if there weren't the sleeves, it would maybe look better, just like that. But at the same time, like I did like in the original, like the like lantern kind of shape sleeve, or like the sort of rounded sleeve. But I mean, for me, like that hasn't really stayed, and obviously it's also become like a bit felted at the armpit and just kind of around the sleeve in general, really, which, you know, is wont to happen. I mean, I also feel like this has like key uses. Like I wore it once on the UCU picket line. The UCU is like University College Union, and so when my like lecturers and other staff members were on strike, I went onto the picket line, and this was like when it was like a February picket, so it's pretty cold, so I wore this, and that was like really perfect. And not only that, but like the UCU colours are purple and pink, so it also really well fit in. And I think I've worn it like a couple other times other than that, but not loads. And I definitely also feel like when I first made it, I was like happy with tying a ribbon around the neckline and pulling it tight to make it look nicer. I think it just fits nicer like that. But then as time has gone on, I kind of feel like that doesn't work so well anymore. In the footage I took of me wearing this, that I will obviously insert, I do think it looks nicer with the ribbon around and tied. So I'm not like ready to give up on it. I'm also not gonna like undo this. Like this is another thing that I think is just like, I made it and I learned from it, and it's not as useful or wearable as I wanted it to be, but it still does get some wear, and I am okay with that. I kind of also feel like it's just really important to be learning from the things you're making. So I feel like if you can have done that, then it kind of justifies them a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, still, like, I also just obviously, like, I have limited space. Like, it's not like I could keep all of the projects that I fail at or something. And it's not that I have loads of projects that I fail at. Like, when I was trying to think of things to talk about, this isn't a particularly large list, and obviously I did just frog one of the things that I would have included on it, / like inspired me to talk about this stuff. So yeah, okay, so I think like that's that for like this particular, like the specific notes on this garment. So like I said, with the construction, this is knit like the front it's knit like the front and then the back, which means you're knitting like stocking stitch, where you're knitting one row and purling the other. When I was looking at this, having looked at my can-do cardigan and been like, I was knitting twisted, I realised that this is also twisted. I'm pretty sure that every stitch on this is also twisted. So I've known for a while that the way that I knit is different to how people tend to knit on the internet, because I always knit through the back loop when I'm doing the knit stitch. That's just, I'm not sure if it was how I was taught, but that's how I feel comfortable knitting, that's how I want to knit. And when I'm knitting in the round, like, I'm not producing twisted stitches, it's all fine, because I'm knitting through the leading foot of the stitch. But it was only recently, like after I was on the like knitting Reddit, sorry if things look different, my phone actually got like too hot and was like, I can't keep recording, which hasn't ever happened to me. So I was saying that when I was on like the knitting Reddit, I saw a post about like the difference between in the round knitting versus knitting flat, and like how you could see it on this person's work, and I was just like, that's how it looks when you go from knitting in the round to knitting flat, because your gauge is slightly different. But I learned that those were twisted stitches, and that's what they looked at like. And so from that, I guess I like started to have this whole kind of crisis about my knitting capacity, because I looked at my own work and I was like, this is twisted. Specifically, I was looking at my can-do cardigan, which there is footage of me also kind of doing in the frogging video, where I'm trying to like figure out and realize. And so with this, upon having that kind of like understanding about twisted stitches, and then also I was watching some other stuff too, I think specifically maybe some Roxanne Richardson stuff, where she was talking about the leading foot versus the like back foot, or like back like yeah foot on the stitch when it's on a needle, and thinking about the way I knit, because I know I knit differently to most knitters, like that's fine. But what is clearly happening, or what I've come to realize, is that I knit through the back loop, which for me is the front like leading loop, so when I knit it's all fine. But when I purl, I'm actually knitting through the front loop, when I should continue to be knitting through the back loop, so that I'm not producing twisted stitches, because the way that I do it does produce that when I'm doing stockinette stitch, knitting one row and then purling the next. So that kind of revelation was interesting to me. There is a knitter on YouTube who makes like knitting, spinning, etc. content, called Jente, who has spoken in some videos about her knitting method, which is called like Eastern knitting or Eastern uncrossed. Like I don't really like this terminology, but that is what it's been like designated. And I guess like I kind of thought maybe we knit the same, but because she purled differently to me, I also was a bit like and it really didn't matter to me at all because I hadn't been taking on projects except for this one, I guess. And the Can Do cardigan, which were not knit in the round and mostly just knit back and forth, knit, purl, knit, purl. And yeah, so learning about all of that and then being like, I guess maybe I do need to think about how I knit. I'm not interested in changing how I knit, like I like how I knit, but I do obviously want to be knitting things that aren't producing twisted stitches. So I am gonna have to learn a different way to purl, which maybe means I'll be doing a way that like doesn't hurt so much, but we'll see. Because that obviously is like an associated Eastern knitting way of purling. I don't know when I'll do that, but I guess like but yeah, so like this whole it's all twisted. Yeah, you can really see it, that it's twisted, and it also means that the stretchiness only goes so far. It's not like terribly unstretchy, at least. And honestly, I think because of the yarn with this particular project, I actually don't think it looks especially bad. And you know, just because of like the degrading of the actual wool and stuff, like it's not very good quality. Like it's, you know, very fluffy. So that's all fine for me. Like I'm not worried about this project as, yeah. But it does also mean that like I've also noticed this in my older knitting. I think some of the stitches are twisted on the cloud bow dress, but also I don't really care about that. And it is kind of harder to see because it's at like a wider gauge already, and then some of it has been pulled tight, so it's already kind of like whatever about like, so I don't really care about that, and I don't think you can really tell unless you're looking really closely. But in terms of the capulet blouse, there is a bit, especially on the back, I think it's most obvious, where I had split for like the like neck and back shaping and stuff for the armholes, that I was not knitting in the round anymore for, obviously, so that has a section that is twisted, and a section that like honestly for this whole time I had just thought was because I changed gauge a bit and like just way of knitting when I went from knitting in the round to knitting flat, which I think is still a little true, but not to the extent that like that should be a big difference because you're twisting your stitches. So yeah, like an interesting kind of learning journey for me with that, and I kind of honestly feel like now I have so much more of a better grip on like what actually knitting is, and how it's happening. And it really doesn't matter how you knit, like as long as you're knitting through the leading foot, whichever one it is in your style of knitting. Obviously it's a little crazy that I like knit one way and then I purl in the way that you're supposed to for another kind of knitting, and I don't know like whether I taught myself. I learned how to knit when I was quite young at school, like not super young like a lot of people say, but maybe like 8 or something in like a knitting club at school. And then like I knit like a few things. I remember I knit like a really terrible red scarf and stuff, which wasn't really a scarf, it was like this long or something. I think I still have the needles that I learned to knit on there. Didn't knit for a really long time after that, and then it was like in like 2020 that I got back into knitting, because I was like, oh, I actually do know how to do this thing, so I would like to like get better at it. And I guess it was partially through crochet too, because I taught myself how to crochet in like 2016, 17 or something, but I notably am not very much of a fan of crochet, especially not anymore. And then yeah, when I re-picked up the knitting, I don't know if I misremembered the purling, or if I was just taught wrong, or if I was taught the like non-Eastern knit stitch and the accompanying purl with that, and instead I just did an Eastern knit stitch and then I followed the correct purl that I was being taught, not correct in the general sense. But I don't know, but it was like a really interesting journey, and I guess that's also partially why I wanted to make this video, because I do feel like what's nice about failure is you can learn from it, and I think, you know, obviously sometimes you learn that you have to just give up, or like accept that the thing that you wanted it to be can't be that way for various reasons. But you can also take the lessons you learn from making things and why they didn't work, or what they how they made you feel, or like what you produced, or how people respond to them, like whatever. And in that way you can kind of like adapt, modify both the garment and also how you approach the next thing that you make. And I like that, and like, you know, I think learning stuff is great, and I think getting better just doesn't really happen without failure, really, I guess, is the fundamental thing. Especially with this kind of like tactile skill knowledge, which I really think, you know, you have to do to like actually know. And I also think that you have to kind of accept your own personal like idiosyncrasies and your own personal way of making it too. And I think that's really lovely. I mean, like, you know, when you're making clothes for yourself or your friends, like the most important thing is that they work as a garment, right? But it doesn't necessarily matter how you get there. And I think that's like good. I don't think we need to become like perfectionists. I don't think we should all just be like knitting exactly the same. I think that's obviously one thing that's kind of hard if you knit the way that I knit, because a lot of the stuff, like, because I'm always knitting through the back loop, when there's like a knit through the back loop section, I have to like figure out how to make that work on my own knitting. And I have always been very confused about like the way that SSKs and knit two togethers look the same for me and like don't really seem to do any kind of difference. And I realized apparently, this is from a video by that knitter that I was saying, Jente. Her channel name is Min Walden. I think that's how you say it. I'm sorry if it's not. She made like a whole video about like Eastern uncrossed knitting and why she knits that way and etc. And she was saying that like in Eastern knitting, like SSKs and knit two togethers do look the same. So that's also really interesting information. And I guess that's also the thing. It's like doing this and like having a non like judgmental perception of it, and like not being like I knit wrong and like I'm bad at knitting because of X, and instead just being like, it means I get to learn more information. That's what I love. I feel like I kind of already said that. Yeah, let me know what you thought about, yeah, whatever, what I was saying, how you knit, like whatever. If you have any good resources for like Eastern uncrossed knitting or how to purl in an Eastern uncrossed way, there are some tutorials. But also I'd be interested in like tutorials that like show an Eastern knitting way to do other techniques, not just knitting and purling, but like the other ones. Yeah, I also would love to hear about your experience of like knitting failures, or how you made failures into like non-failures, or yeah, what you think about the different plans I have for some of these garments. Yeah, let me know. I hope you're having a lovely day when you're watching this. I hope you're able to knit. And yeah, I will talk to you when I next talk to you. Bye.